This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Ethiopia's Sidama vote overwhelmingly to form an autonomous region. Guinea-Bissau votes for president after weeks of political unrest. And we look at how Zimbabwean artists are thriving in the midst of economic challenges. This is CGTN. Welcome to Africa Live with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also coming up on the program. In business news, South African entrepreneur turned hobby into skincare business. And in sports, the world marathon record holder Eliud Kipchoge is named the World Athletics Male Athlete of the Year. We begin our bulletin in Ethiopia, where the Sidama referendum has been completed legally and in a peaceful manner. Sidama has managed to obtain the necessary vote to become a regional government on its own, based on the decision of residents through the ballot. Here's Jen Keo with the details.
The Sidama people have voted to form their own self-governing region. Authorities say the referendum was peaceful, credible, and had a huge voter turnout.
The number of votes that went to the heart emblem that represents unity with the South was 33,463, while the number of votes that went to the Shafeta emblem that represents independence of Sidama zone was 2,225,249. Accordingly, Shafeta has received 98.51%, while the heart received 1.48%.
Ethiopia's constitution gives the right to seek autonomy to its more than 80 ethnic groups.
This is a struggle that took around 130 years. Our forefathers struggled for this cause. I have friends from my generation who died, were imprisoned, and were exiled for the same cause. I'm short of words to express my happiness.
But it's only under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's political reform agenda that the government approved the Sidama request for a referendum. The country has been undergoing rapid changes since the Prime Minister was appointed last year, promising to forge a more open society. Jane Keo, CGTN.
To the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a passenger plane has crashed in the eastern city of Goma. Officials say at least 17 passengers were on board. The number of fatalities is not yet clear. The plane went down during takeoff. It was headed to the city of Beni. We will bring you the update on that story as we get the update. Now, voting is underway in Guinea-Bissau's presidential election. Citizens hope this will bring change to the coup-prone nation. The ballot comes after weeks of political chaos that sparked violent protests and deadlocked a parliament. President Jose Mario Vaz is seeking re-election for a second term. The incumbent faces a stiff opposition from former Prime Minister Domingos Simios. Preliminary results are expected on November the 28th. If there is no outright winner, a second round between the two top candidates will take place in December. Well, let's cross over to Lagos now and to CGTN's Deji Badmus. He is following up the elections in Guinea-Bissau. Deji, Guinea-Bissau votes for the president after weeks of political upset. What more can you tell us about the voting today?
Well, Beatrice, polling units actually opened at around 7 GMT and voting is expected to end at 17 GMT. 12 candidates, of course, are taking part in the election. Among them, as you have said, President Mario Vaz, who is seeking a second 5-year term. We still have 11 other candidates. Now, President Vaz is running as an independent, and his main contender is believed to be the former Prime Minister of the country, the man he sacked in 2015 as Prime Minister. And we're talking about Mr. Pereira. And Mr. Pereira is actually the candidate now of the dominant party in Guinea-Bissau, and that's the PAIGC. That's the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde. Now, that party has been the dominant party in that country. Mr. Vaz ought to have been running on the platform of that party, but he was expelled by the party a few months ago, and that's the reason why he is running as an independent. So Pereira is expected to give him a very strong opposition, but we just have to wait and see how it turns out. Interestingly, you have two other former prime ministers also running in this election. And altogether, well, turnout is expected to be high, but we'll just have to wait and see. When they had the legislative election sometime in March this year, turnout was indeed high, but we still have to wait and see how everything pans out. But for now, voting has actually started, it's going on, and it's expected to end at 17 GMT. Beatrice?
Well, Deji, there are 12 candidates in this election, and you've mentioned among them 2 former prime ministers. So what are some of the challenges of this election?
Look, Guinea-Bissau is very much challenged. It's a very much challenged country. First of all, there's the issue of political instability. Since 2014, when Mr. Mario Vaz became the president of this country, it's been bogged down by political instability, especially infighting now within his own political party. Between 2014 and this period, Mr. Vaz has sacked 7 prime ministers. So it gives you an idea of what the political situation is in that country. Now, in terms of the economy, the basic commodity Guinea-Bissau exports is cashew. And the fact is that prices have actually been volatile, so things are difficult for the economy. 70% of the population of that country actually live below the poverty line. So poverty is quite rampant, is one of the challenges the income, whoever wins this election would have to deal with. Then there's the issue of drug. Remember, the United States some time ago designated Guinea-Bissau a narco state because, you know, drug cartels from Latin America used Guinea-Bissau as a staging post to export their drugs now to Europe. So you still have that problem of drugs. It's not gone. It's still very much there. Mr. Vaz has tried as much as possible to fight it, but then it's still a very much existential problem. It has to be dealt with. Then there's also the problem of corruption. I mean, Transparency International ranked Guinea-Bissau now 172 out of 180 on its Transparency Corruption Perception Index. That's in 2018. And what most people believe is that the situation has actually got worse. So these are the challenges that whoever wins this election would have to confront. So whoever the next president is of this country would have his work cut out. Beatrice?
Right. So if there is no outright winner, though, a second round between the 2 top candidates will take place in December. And according to the Constitution, when can we expect the results?
Well, according to the Constitution, preliminary results are expected November the 28th, and so which means in 4 days' time, we should get preliminary results. And if no candidate, if none of the 12 candidates now is able to poll more than 50% of the votes, then there would be a runoff in December, as you have said. Now, we just have to wait and see how it goes. The last election they had in that country in 2014 went into a second round. The first round, President Vaz actually got around 40% of the votes, and in the second round, he got about 61%. So there's every likelihood this might go into a second round. We just have to wait and see. But if tradition is to be followed, based on what we saw in 2014, and based on what we saw too during the legislative election when the PAIGC could not win an outright majority and had to go into a coalition with 2 other political parties, then there were chances that we might be in for a runoff. But, you know, it's still too early to call. We have to wait and see. But if that runoff happens, then it happens December, as you have said, the 29th. And after then, whoever takes it at the end of the day becomes the president of the country.
All right, Deji Badmus, following the Burkina Faso election for us there, is joining me from Lagos. Thank you. Now, the United Nations Humanitarian Resident Coordinator in South Sudan says the humanitarian situation in the country remains very serious. UN officials anticipate that in 2020, there will be 7.5 million people in need of humanitarian assistance. There are 1.5 million people internally displaced in the East African nation, and there are 2.2 million still outside of the country as refugees. Heavy rains have also made the situation on the ground even worse.
We had a flooding to the level haven't seen in the last 40 years, which has really affected 900,000 people in South Sudan. And out of those 900,000 people, more than 600,000 people require some kind of humanitarian assistance. So we have been working really diligently over the past few weeks to respond to that flooding. And you can imagine that many of the counties where the flooding is happening were the same counties where we have vulnerabilities from the past. And those counties now are basically commanding our attention with what we call immediate response going to them.
South Sudan is one of the most dangerous places to be a child as we speak. As Alan said, 1 out of 10 children dies before age 5, which is quite extremely high in the context of South Sudan. 2.2 million children are out of school. And in the context of South Sudan, where the conflict has been ongoing for many years, and with 70% of the population being youth, you can understand that it's quite easy to have these children do whatever the people who are there getting them on board want them to do because they have no access to education. And as we speak, we have about more than 10,000 children who are associated with armed groups.
It's less than 6 hours left before the polls close for Hong Kong's local district council elections. All the 18 constituent districts have seen their voter turnout exceeding 40%. By 3:30 p.m. local time, nearly 2 million, or over 47% of voters, cast their ballots. The rate has already surpassed the final turnout figure in the 2015 local elections. The vote has so far been peaceful. Early results should start trickling in before midnight.
We need to move away from the current chaos in Hong Kong. We need the restoration of peace and stability. For those creating chaos, we want to chase them away so that 7 million Hong Kong residents can live a happy life, feeling secure, protect our own home.
We would like a stable job. You know, if there's no job, there would be no income. So we Hong Kong residents wish for a stable job and proper shelter. As a senior citizen, I personally hope that the government can provide us with more allowances.
Opposition parties plan to field more than 500 candidates. Let's take a look at some of them.
Sunday's district council elections in Hong Kong could be the most fiercely contested in years. 1,090 candidates are competing for 452 seats. Pro-establishment parties now control nearly 3/4 of the seats, but that may change. Here are some of the more than 500 opposition candidates. Sham Ji-kit belongs to the League of Social Democrats. He insists on the protesters' 5 demands, including an independent inquiry into alleged police brutality and amnesty for more than 4,000 people facing charges over the protests. Sham himself has helped organize several protests against the Fugitive Offenders Bill since March. He was also present at the stormings of the Legislative Council complex and the liaison office in July. Another candidate, Lam Chok Ting, is a member of the Hong Kong Legislative Council. He also advocates the protesters' 5 demands, as well as limits on the number of mainland travelers to Hong Kong. His platform includes more public housing and better transportation in the North District. Lam has also voiced opposition to the Fugitive Offenders Bill and has been known to offer help to protesters. Roy Kwong Chun Yu, another member of the Hong Kong Legislative Council, has been a familiar face in the Hong Kong protests. He was also part of Occupy Central in 2014. During his first election in 2007, Kwong posted a video of himself dancing to hip-hop music and became known as the hip-hop counselor. Tiffany Yuan Kao-wai, now 26 years old, is an assistant to a localist legislative councillor. Yuan was a main figure in 2014's Occupy Central and became the vice chairperson of the controversial organization Demosisto in 2017. Her boyfriend Nathan Law Kwon Chung has also played a leading role in Demosisto. Yuan advocates community democratic participation and better transportation. More than 4 million people are registered to vote on Sunday, but turnout in district elections has always been under 50%. Jen Kwan, CGTN.
Well, Hong Kong has stepped up efforts to ensure order and safety for these local elections. Our reporter Sun Tianyuan tells us more.
There are over 600 polling stations for more than 4 million voters in 18 districts. You can imagine how much work it is for the government to maintain order and security. The Hong Kong police force says it has deployed plenty of manpower and has planned for every eventuality when it comes to security. And police have urged protesters not to resort to violence or voter harassment. Officers are expected to be on patrol with a, quote, high-profile presence near the stations. If there is any violence, they say they will deal with it without hesitation. Just 2 days ago, over 70 petrol bombs were found in an alley near one of the stations. Given that such weapons have been frequently used by rioters in recent protests, the city's fire department has established rapid response groups to cope with possible fire emergencies during the elections.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. Unemployed women find empowerment through bidding in South Africa. And DR Congo urges Belgium to return art taken during colonialism.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there to see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Social entrepreneur Chumisa Manyamala took up a bidding when she started her business. The skill taught her persistence and precision, but it also proved to be a great way of empowering unemployed women from one of Cape Town's poorest areas, Khayelitsha. Today, she runs a full-time business called Iliso Beading Products and employs 10 women from the township. CGTN's Julie Shire takes a look.
I'm Chumisa Manyamala from Gugulethu, Cape Town. I make beaded products, mostly fashion accessories and home decor. I've always been interested and love working with my hands. The opportunity for me to start beading started in 2003. A friend of mine called me, said that there was an opportunity at shows here in the country in South Africa. I recently trained more ladies because I couldn't, the work that I was doing, I was becoming more busier. So I needed more people to help me with as my product is getting more exposure and people are buying and falling in love with it. Yes, the business is growing and I'm still hopeful that it's still going to grow. And I want to expand, not only sell here in South Africa, I also want to work outside with like other companies. For instance, that would be lovely if I can work with theme parks, whether it's Disney or any other theme park around the world, if they're listening. I see them grow from the business, making the career out of it, because when you're making craft in general in South Africa, yes, it's starting to get recognized, but people, they didn't realize that before, that this is the kind of work one people can get employed and get send their children to school and make a living out of it.
I learned with Chumisa to make bracelets, necklace, and earrings. It's very difficult to find a job. That's why we are here with that time Chumisa arrived at Khayelitsha to give that opportunity. And it's not nice to stay here in the informal settlement because we are not working, we don't have enough money, then we have to stay here in informal settlement. Our dream is to move out here and have everything we want in future. And also our children must have a better future in our families.
I hope the business grows so that we can employ more people, so that they can also work and bring food to their tables in their homes.
My dream is to own more businesses than this one I have. So this is a jump start for me.
The President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, officially inaugurated the National Museum in Kinshasa. The museum is housed in a new building funded by the South Korean International Cooperation Agency. Tshisekedi has called on Belgium to return artifacts taken during the colonial era. CGTN's Tulisha Balala has more.
The DRC's National Museum took 3 years to build. It was completed in June and will display hundreds of items portraying the history, life and culture of the Congolese people.
It is legitimate for Brussels to accept the restitution of these works of art because, these works of art do not have the same significance. It is just not a geographical move, it's a cultural move. It's about immersing them back in the culture of a people. It is contentious. I think the government will take the necessary measures for us to recuperate most of our works of art that are in Europe.
The DRC has expressed their hope of expanding the collection with items taken abroad during the colonial era.
It is one thing to demand them, the Congolese artifacts in Belgium, and another is to conserve them as well. So the idea is there, but it needs to be done progressively. Obviously, it is the Congolese heritage, so one day it will have to come back, but we must do it in an organized manner. We need to recognize that the Belgians helped us to conserve it, so we can't just take it all back in one go. We need to be organized. We shall see how we can satisfy the people.
President Etienne Tshisekedi hopes Congolese art will be reinstituted once they can ensure they are properly conserved in the National Museum. Tulisha Balala, CGTN.
Meanwhile, Egyptian antiquities authorities have uncovered a large cache of mummified animals in the south of Cairo. Authorities say the ancient artifacts include masks, statues, mummified cats, crocodiles, cobras, beetles and birds. Ancient Egyptians mummified humans to preserve their bodies for the afterlife, while animal mummies were used as religious offerings.
This is not a tomb. What? It's a cachet. It's a cachette of the sacred birds, animals, mummified, and the statues. How many we found? Hundreds. Is that all? No. We still have a lot in our store magazine. The most lovely discovery out of those hundreds, that scarab. It is the biggest and the hugest scarab all over the world.
Today we are discovering maybe another mummies for this small line. Will take some time to announce surely the identity of these 5 animals. We found hundreds of amulets in bronze, faience, funerary masks, statues of falcon, crocodiles.
In Nigeria, about 19 million people live with disability. While many can be seen on the streets begging for alms, one has dared to be different. 35-year-old visually impaired Augustine Ubaka learned how to weave bags and is now driving down Nigeria's unemployment rate by empowering others with weaving skills. CGTN's Deji Badmos had a sit-down with him and filed this report.
In his hands, ropes are not just a tool to tie objects together. They're the basic materials to weave bags, belts, flower vases, sleepers, sandals, and many other items. Augustine Ubaka weaves bags with dexterity and teaches 6 others how to work ropes into fashion items. But you may not notice at first glance that he's actually blind. He might have lost his sight, but no oversight or mistake by his apprentices escapes him.
There is an error here. Are you surprised? Even though I cannot see, I can easily notice an error. That's I always tell you. Anytime you notice an error, call my attention.
He's passionate about passing on his skills to his apprentices, ensuring the work to the minutest of details.
Then you cross it like this.
Having learnt the skill from her husband, the wife here is helping in making the bags and teaching the apprentices as well. Ubaka wasn't born blind. He developed an eye defect as a teenager, which deteriorated into blindness when he couldn't get medical care. But with the help of individuals and the state government, he was able to overcome his disability by enrolling in a vocational institute.
Luckily for me, the state sent about 3 students to the school. So I attended Nigerian Fan Craft Center for the Blind, Ikeja, Lagos. That was 2006. And I graduated, I perfected in this craft work as a skill. And today, God has been helping me. For someone who is blind, his products are quite unique and colorful. From bags to shoes, belts to sandals, the colors are eye-catching. Before I make any bag, God must have given me the kind of color to combine and the design to do it.
Since we got married 2011, have not seen him like somebody that is visually impaired. I've been seeing him like someone that sees, because he does everything. Even there are some things that I can't do, he does it. I didn't even know about this work before. So it was when we got married, he started teaching me, and now I can make it very well.
Apart from his wife, Ubaka has taught hundreds of others who had gone on to start their own weaving business. It's something these trainees are hoping to do as well when they're done.
I think this handwork in the future is very helpful, because while the white-collar jobs and all that are there, you need something to be attached with, something you can depend on, you can stay on your own and make your money, not being under somebody. You can be a boss of your own.
If I see a young graduate that's looking for how to make a sleeve, I will encourage him or her to learn this skill.
He may be disabled, but he's helping able people find their way in life and earn a living. Ubaka's desire is to get funding to expand his business and train more youths in the country to prove that there's indeed ability in disability. Deji Batmos, CGTN, Delta State, Nigeria.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program. A South African entrepreneur turns a hobby into a skincare business. And Nigerian mother built her own baby formula factory. Zikona Tefu started making handmade soaps as an aid to help her daughter's skin condition. However, Tefu had no idea that one day all her natural and organic remedies would turn into a booming business. CGTN's Julie Shire caught up with Zikona Tefu in Cape Town and brings you her success journey. Take a look.
My name is Zikona Tefu. I am the founder of Olive Handmade Soaps. Olive started a few years back. It started in 2011 in my kitchen. I started because my daughter had eczema, so I was trying to find natural ways of dealing with her skin conditions, and I started making soap just for our family. Before I knew it, there was a demand for it and people were buying our soaps. Our soaps are made from plant-based oils, of which the major components are olive oil, shea butter, coconut oil as well. We also use pure essential oils to scent them for their therapeutic benefits, as well as plant-based ingredients like rooibos tea. We use honey for the honey soap, so it's all natural ingredients. We sell at our factory in Woodstock. We also sell at 2 markets in Cape Town, as well as shops, gift shops, wineries countrywide. We do have an export business as well. We export to the USA, the Middle East, as well as to Europe. As we're traveling to China to try and export into the Chinese market as well. There's a great demand for our product. Have empowered people by employing them and giving them skills. Our business employs 4 full-time staff. We also employ 3 part-time people. Our brand contributes towards uplifting the communities, towards offering employment to people who ordinarily wouldn't have. We have offered skills to people who wanted to start similar businesses. So that's been our brand's contribution to the unemployment crisis in South Africa. A dream for the brand is to see the brand grow, to see, even though it's a niche product, to see it being used in more homes, to see people gravitating towards using more natural products. Our dream is to make a difference in the natural environment. The more we take better care of ourselves, the more we nurture ourselves, our skins will look better, our bodies will feel much better, and because we're not filling it with foreign ingredients that are not meant to be on our skin.
And more on entrepreneurship, from searching in vain for the right formula for her infant to now manufacturing her own baby formula. That's the story of a Nigerian mother who is now a full-time entrepreneur with her own factory. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmus.
Oluwatoyin Onigbanjo did not set out to be a manufacturer of infant cereals, but that's effectively what she is now with her natural child nutrition startup, August Secrets. The journalist turned entrepreneur was basically inspired by her quest to find a solution to her infant son's eating habits.
When I started out making the food, I didn't know that 1,000,001 other, African mothers were having the same problems as me. So when everyone, watched me try out these recipes for Jaden, I got a huge demand to start making the cereals, for them, and that was how August Secrets started.
August Secrets is now fully operational, producing variants of local cereals for children aged 9 months and above. All the ingredients used in making the cereals Onigbanjo named after her son are sourced locally and mixed here. The final product is then carefully packaged before being readied for dispatch to supermarkets and stores across Nigeria.
So far, so good. A cumulative number of over 200,000 families have been inspired by August Secrets, not just buying the cereals, but also being inspired. I mean, the whole value chain, is a big achievement for us because farmers now know what orange flesh sweet potatoes can be used for. We have various products that are made with amazing crops that are all homegrown and simply just dried, mixed, and packaged for babies, all natural.
Her Jaden's brand of cereals now competes with other foreign brands, with several supermarkets and stores stocking them.
We have products in more than 20 states in Nigeria, in Ghana, UK, USA, and a total of more than 150 stores nationwide selling 100% African cereals named after my son, Jaden.
Onigbanjo is passionate about making an impact in the health and nutrition of children in Nigeria and Africa at large. And in about 5 years, she's been helping thousands of mothers turn fuzzy eaters to healthy foodies.
The vision for August Secrets in the nearest future is actually to reach as many African families with this food. The vision for August Secrets is to be a household name when it comes to optimal, innovative, delicious nutrition. Starting from pregnancy to breastfeeding, everything in the value chain of supporting mothers to give children the best of nutrition.
Onigbanjo's August Secrets currently employs up to 50 people directly and indirectly, from production to distribution. She's hoping to rapidly grow that number as her enterprise expands. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, 10 entrepreneurs in Africa have been honored for their innovation and drive to create solutions to some of the challenges facing the continent. The total prize money for the first annual African Netpreneur Prize Initiative Awards was $1 million. They were established by the founder of Alibaba Group, Jack Ma. CGTN's Penina Karibe was at the weekend ceremony in Accra, Ghana.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the much anticipated, sought after Jack Ma's Foundation Africa's Business Hero Show.
A night of glitz and glamour at the Accra International Convention Center in Ghana.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it from...
It was time to honor entrepreneurship in Africa, recognizing some of the best innovative and creative business minds in the continent. Dubbed Africa's Business Heroes, the African Netpreneur Prize Initiative is a flagship project of the Jack Ma Foundation, created by Jack Ma. The initiative was born after his first trip to Africa in 2017.
Young people are the hope of Africa. And this is why we decided to build up this Young African Entrepreneur Award. I think entrepreneurs are the great adventurers. They are the explorers. They love to walk in the way the other people have never tried. And they always challenge the things the other people don't believe it will work. Most people say in Africa today, there's no e-commerce, there's no logistics, there's no payment. But to me, it's so similar. Africa today is just like 15, 20 years ago, China. Because we have nothing, and that is the opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, the truth is that successful economies depend largely on entrepreneurs running successful businesses. We need to push vigorously in Africa the culture of entrepreneurship so that we can grow our economies and become prosperous.
And that is what the African Netpreneur Prize Initiative is all about. It's the first time this event was taking place, and almost 10,000 entrepreneurs from 50 countries across the continent entered for the competition. 10 finalists were shortlisted, and after 3 hours of them pitching their ideas to the judges, the final 3 were picked, and in the end, the winner announced.
Is our winner! Ladies and gentlemen.
Temi Giwa-Tubusun, founder and CEO of LifeBank, a Nigerian startup that connects blood donors to recipients and facilitates blood distribution, bagged $250,000 US.
What would I do? Use the resources to continue to build what we're building, scale to a couple more cities in Nigeria, and use that resources to do this winning to do that. It's all about impact, it's all about our growth in our revenue, and really proving that we can really solve this problem using a business model.
But even with this initiative, there's acknowledgement that more still needs to be done to scale up entrepreneurship in Africa.
I just found there are so many, every country I go there are so many great entrepreneurs, but they're not connected. Right? They're not connected. There's like entrepreneur association or club or hubs. And thanks to our partners that make things happen, we got a lot of partners, especially 5 hubs of Africa. So I would love to discuss with them after this event and how can we make the ecosystem better.
The Jack Ma Foundation has committed to running the competition for 10 years. At the end of the day, the conversations were focused on one thing: creating the right environment and infrastructure for African entrepreneurs to come up with solutions to some of Africa's most pressing needs. Penina Karibe, CGTN in Accra, Ghana.
And we still have more news for you here in the program. Here's what's ahead. We'll look at how Zimbabwean artists are thriving in the midst of economic challenges.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. CGTN. See the difference.
Now, despite mounting economic challenges, Zimbabwean artists are still going strong. Whether they are renowned Shona sculptors or New Age visual artists, they are finding ways to tell their story and get international attention for their work. CGTN's Farai Mwakutuya met some of them to find out what's kept the arts sector ticking.
Bernard Sakarombe is fashioning his latest piece. It's going to be a woman, but he's not yet sure what she'll be doing because the stone hasn't told him yet.
The stone and I communicate. It tells me how it wants me to manipulate it. I cannot force it to do what I want.
Such is the connection between the artist and his medium, which is in demand internationally.
We have between 62 and 65 types of stone that we use. Some of the places where they are found are still not discovered, so the generations to come can use them. Our stones are popular because they are weather resistant. They do not get damaged in the extreme cold in Europe.
Not a single word spoken, and there doesn't need to be any, because there's still an abundance of history, culture, and inspiration being communicated through these pieces of rock which would ordinarily be mute before they're brought to life by a generation of inspired artists. Other genres are being propelled to new heights despite the economic challenges.
It's because of the current crisis that our country has been going through, and when there's certain things, it pushes creativity. People start to think out of the box, and so the pressure that was applied on people started to make them think out of the box, and that's why you find out not even only art, even in music, there's sort of new energies coming up, even in visual arts, which is doing bigger than the music. It's all about that certain pressure.
A young artist might not afford to buy the materials that they want. Paints are expensive, brushes are expensive. Then they'll go onto the street and find anything that somebody else has thrown out and repurpose that and make something wonderful. So I feel like also our culture is very philosophical. We've always been good at using sort of proverbs and saying things that have to be said but in a very hidden way. And I think that puts a lot of layers to the work that we make, and it becomes very interesting.
And attractive to art lovers all over the world, where these pieces often find homes. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
And more from the art scene. The birth of Tunisian contemporary painting is strongly linked to the School of Tunis, established by a group of artists from Tunisia, united by the desire to incorporate native themes and rejecting the influence of Orientalist colonial painting. The school was founded in 1949 and brings together French and Tunisian Muslims, Christians and Jews. CGTN's Adnan Chauchi looks at a new generation of young painters from the school and how they are influencing art in the country.
Sadaq Gmesh is among the first students of the School of Tunis. Yahya Turki, the father of Tunisian painting, was his mentor. Sadaq was born and raised in Babeswiqa neighborhood in the Old City. 65 years ago, he organized his first exhibition at the age of 14. Since the 1950s, the painter's works have celebrated all forms of the Tunisian identity.
I admired my teachers and companions in the School of Tunis. I was influenced by their ways, style, and their favorite subjects that were celebrating the customs and traditions of the country. The Yahya Gallery has always been a home for the Tunisian artists from the different backgrounds and religions.
Professors and art critics at the prestigious Tunis Institute of Fine Arts have included the School of Tunis era in the bachelor curriculum. Thousands of graduates have studied the influence of this institution, which paved the way for contemporary painting in Tunisia.
The School of Tunis was a form of resistance. It paved the way for other artistic movements in the country. The artists died, but their paintings, legacy, philosophy have survived. The new generation is influenced by the founders.
Rihab Nagmar is a young artist who has displayed her paintings in many art galleries in Tunisia and abroad. She's familiar with the Saadi Gallery in Carthage. It testifies to the birth and development of Tunisian contemporary painting.
Over the past 6 decades, painting techniques have changed and open-air art galleries have mushroomed. Women's rights, the noble cause of humanity, the condition of workers, love, freedom, nature and other themes are visible in my paintings.
Since 2011, the art scene in Tunisia has gathered momentum. Many private galleries have opened in different regions. The fingerprint of the School of Tunis is remarkable at any art gallery in Tunisia. The eternal spirit of this era has accompanied many generations and influenced contemporary painting and art in general in the North African state. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
And in South Africa, a street artist is gaining popularity for expressing his thoughts through spray and acrylic paint. Dubongs perpetually pursues his artwork through mixed media collage, as well as other alternative methods and techniques that he discovers as he goes. CGTN's Elisa Njamela had a one-on-one with him and filed this report.
Meet Dubongs Mahlathi, a remarkable street artist known as the master of spray paint and acrylic. His studio is the streets of Johannesburg.
So my work is basically graffiti street art. So it's basically something between not just writing a name, but it's basically the core of it is basically using spray paint. So what I do, I tell my stories through it. Like I say graffiti because that's where my roots are. I started writing my name, but then I saw that it just was not enough. You know, I just had to do something more. I just had to tell my story. I just had to let people let people in on what it is that I do besides just writing a name. So I started doing portraits.
The artist has been at it for a number of years now. Dubong started participating in street art in 2008 when he came to the city to pursue his tertiary education, and then he fell in love with the kind of freedom that it afforded him. The autonomy it gave him through the ability to splash colors and the lure of the huge canvases in a form of walls. As a young man with a township base, Dubongs is always keen to narrate stories from there.
And the stories that I want to tell is like, we know what we go through in the township. We know the things that are happening but are not being told. But with me, I'm like, I'll tell the story, but not just stick to telling the story, but tell this is the problem and this is the solution, because I've gone through it. I've gone through the depression. I've gone through not believing in myself. I've gone through people laughing at me for wanting to be an artist and saying, oh, really? Is that what you want to do?
He persevered. As a result, his hard work keeps paying off. One of the highlights of the fruits of his work was when he was chosen by international actress Charlize Theron as one of 2 street artists to represent South Africa and tell their story through their artwork.
I was really excited about it, and not having been out of South Africa before, and the first city being New York, which is like, in my mind, the biggest city in the world. It was, yeah, I can't explain it in words. Like, even people now, they say, explain the trip, and I can't explain the trip in words because, yeah, it had me going. And even now, it's very mind-blowing. Just being in the same room with Charlize Theron, Drew Barrymore, Boyz II Men, it was, like, the energy is so amazing.
He now wants to make it easier for those who want to follow the same path.
Yeah, I think it's just that I didn't believe in myself because I never had like a support structure of people who understand and who understood what it is that I was doing. Because where you're from, it's like you have to be a nurse, you have to be a doctor, something we've seen before, something that it's seen as like a traditional career.
The young artist wants his work to reach the rest of the continent and the world. Beatrice Marshall for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Let's now take a look at your sports news. Here's what's ahead. The world marathon record holder Eliud Kipchoge named World Athletics Male Athlete of the Year.